Hi, my name is Dave Bader with Marine Mammal Care Center. Conservation is something that anybody can be a part of. Here's another conservationist that's working to make the world a better place.
My name is Kelly DeWeese, and I am a Ph.D. candidate in the News Gene Lab, and my pronouns are she, her. I was interested for a long time in conservation. Like growing up, I definitely had an interest in understanding global warming, now more often called climate change, I guess. But as I grew up and as I got more involved in science and learned more about more like economic structures and power structures in the US, it became a lot more interesting and a lot more pivotal. I think it's kind of symptoms of larger problems, but I also think that the ways that we address it could benefit from acknowledging that, I guess, from acknowledging the larger problems that a lot of climate change actually stems from. Yeah, so I do a lot of work with understanding genes that regulate reproduction in species of kelps. The interest there is really that we want to grow biofuel from kelps and from algae, in addition to not requiring land that could be used for food production or for housing or things like that humans might need. Using aquaculture and growing our crops for biofuel in the ocean is a lot less nutrient intensive, so it requires a lot less inputs, and it actually often can bioremediate the areas that it's in, versus agriculture tends to exhaust the environments and the soils that it's grown in. And it grows a lot faster. So giant kelp, for instance, grows about 2 feet per day. And that's kind of like at the max, but it's a sort of a different system that we can really take advantage of, that is low input and doesn't really compete with a lot of other interests. I think that focusing on how these outplants might affect the environments that they're in is extremely important, and I am really happy doing that work. It is a really great challenge that we face, and it is really hard to face it with optimism when there's so many things going against it, but I think that motivates me even more maybe. It's not really something that I can not have emotion about or something like that, so I think that keeps me engaged because it is something that I worry about. It's something that concerns me, and so I think that keeps me more driven to do the work. Like doing outreach and communicating the science to wider audiences is a really cool way to sort of get everybody informed, to understand more about how we are affecting our environments and our ecosystems. I always thought it was really interesting. I don't really come from a science family or background, and so even with parents with secondary education, I didn't really know how to get involved in research and science. The research a lot of times is very volunteer-based, and I had no idea how to approach that sort of scenario. And so in my program, we've been trying to establish some things through a diversity and inclusion committee to make it more accessible for undergrads to understand how to do research, or high school students approaching who want to do research with the university. Reach out to professors, ask researchers and scientists, like, can I help, can I volunteer? Because even though it is a barrier to entry because not everybody has the ability to volunteer time, asking that can put your foot in the door. Maybe if you can even do remote or computational work or something like that, you can get associated with it. And it's so hard to get into research without that sort of background. So I think that's something that I would have told a young self.